we're here in Budrum, Queensland, talking to AIFC founders Dr. Bruce and Nellie Litchfield, and it's a great pleasure to be able to speak with you today. And I wanted to start off by just asking some questions around AIFC in the beginning, and what was, and many of our audience will be familiar with your story, some not so much. AIFC in the beginning and what God put on your hearts for this ministry to be born.
It began about 25 years ago when we began running seminars on the family in Canberra. We did over 50 seminars in that first year, and quite a few of the pastors we visited said, why don't you run a course on counselling? Because we get many difficult cases and we don't know how to handle them. And this was not on our agenda at that stage. So we thought about it and prayed about it, and we felt that God was saying, yes, start a course in counselling. You've had a lot of training in counselling, get involved in training others. So we did. That was in 1992. And AFC really began then, although it wasn't called AFC in those days, because it was run under the banner of Youth of the Mission, which we were members of and still are members of. And we eventually took it out of YWAM because it clashed with some of their courses.
Right.
And so it began to grow by itself, and we gave it the name the Australian Institute of Family Counselling. Started from nothing 20 years ago, and it's now grown to the largest counselling training organisation in the country. And God has signally blessed it. His hand and anointing has been upon it. That's just not me saying that, but anyone who knows the history says the same thing. And many have been blessed by it. Thousands of people have done the course. And almost every week or two I come across somebody who's done our course. In fact, and it grew actually out of our own personal experiences. We were very broken. We got a lot of healing in Youth with a Mission, and also during our studies for in counselling and family therapy, psychology. And we felt we had to pass this on to others. And God gave us a real passion for the healing of families. And everywhere we looked, we saw there's an enormous need for that. And we believe God told us to go abroad and to minister among the families of the world, especially in the undeveloped countries of the world. And so we've spent every year for the last 20 years we've been travelling to places like the former Soviet countries, 15 times to Africa, many times to China, Southeast Asia, teaching on the family issues, matters relating to family addictions and healthy sexuality, and very encouraging results have emerged from this. And this has continued right up till about 1 year ago, and the only thing that has stopped that is my health. But I'm hoping that my health will improve so I can get back into this and go back and see the work we began and developed, and I'll find it very encouraging to see how God is working in areas where we've been. One of the most encouraging things for one of the Lord's servants is to see God working in the lives of other people. And we've seen plenty of that happening over that period of 20 years. Only 2 weeks back, we were at a big church here in Budrum, and the assistant pastor said, I did your course some 10 years ago, and I received a tremendous amount of help from it, and I used a lot of the material in my own preachings. That kind of thing we hear constantly. So really the course was developed out of our own brokenness. And healing and in God's infinite grace. And I believe God has used that and has given us the the knowledge through study, plenty of study, and experience, plenty of experience. We set up a family therapy practice in Canberra, which operated for over 15 years, and we saw many families, many couples with serious cases of addiction and marital problems, all kinds of problems. And we gained tremendous experience as a result of all that, which, bringing all that together, we've been able to formulate a training program which is very comprehensive and effective.
It must be very rewarding seeing people, sounds like regularly, who have done your course, and not only done it and been through aifc, but have you seeing the fruit of it in their lives and in their lives onto other lives. So an assistant pastor who you saw recently, so that's flowing on into, there's an eternal impact in that, isn't there?
I don't think it can be measured actually. We don't really know the full extent of the blessing that's been to people, but we're getting these constant reports as feedback about how people have been blessed by it, which is indeed, as you said, very encouraging. So we thank God for His grace that He could take people up like us in our brokenness. I mean, I thought there was no hope for me back in the mid-80s. I just wrote myself off as a complete disaster. But God graciously picked me up and equipped me and brought me to where I am today.
Let's pick up on that a little bit. You went through your own personal journey. You mentioned brokenness and yourself being a disaster in your own words. And you use the word equipped. How important is it as Christians being, and we each have different callings on our life that are unique to us, but that equipping, how important is that in being able to step into what God's leading us, calling us, asking us to receive from Him?
I think anyone engaged in God's work must be properly equipped if they're going to be really effective. There's a verse in the Psalms that says He teaches our fingers for battle and our hands to fight. And we need that training to get into the battle. And the biggest battleground of all is in people. And taking issue with the enemy in people's lives. And the enemy doesn't like that. He'll put up a fight and will do all he can to stop that by attacking you personally and your marriage and your family, whatever. Anything you'll do to try and discredit you. And we've had plenty of attacks like that. But thank God that through spiritual warfare we've been able to keep the enemy at a distance, and the victory has been there all the way through. Thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. That's real, to experience the victory of Christ.
We have an enemy and it's not each other.
Yes.
Christians can sometimes battle with one another, can't they?
Oh yes, we've had some very interesting times. We're very opposite in our personalities.
Yes.
But we have been able to work together for over 20 years, and not too many couples can do that. And so I thank God for Nelly. I'm a more structured kind of person. I do most of the teaching. Nelly is a much better counsellor because she's a better listener and she's more patient.
Self-aware.
So the two is blend together.
Yes.
And in the counselling scene, I mean, we used to counsel people in this therapy practice. We counselled as a husband and wife team. I'd bring the structure into the counselling, and Nelly was more people-oriented, and people related very strongly to her, but I kept things structured on the rails, and so together it worked out very well.
It's very powerful when a person or a couple are seeing a husband and wife counsellors.
Well, a lot of people came to us just because of that, because They get the masculine and the feminine view on their problems.
Yes.
It's amazing how many men with sexual addiction, for example, were attracted to Nelly because they felt she understood their situation. And then there's a lot of who prefer to see me because they like the structure, depending a lot on the personality of the client.
Mm. You mentioned it was born out of your story, but also out of a need. Do you think that need that's there within the church in society has grown now? You mentioned that was the mid-80s, so we're going to say that was 25 to 30 years ago. Have I got that right? I think so. Is that 25 years ago? Has that need grown?
I think the need is enormous, and one of the sad things in the church today is it's not being addressed.
Mm.
From the pulpit, nice doctrinal sermons are presented oftentimes, and where people are at is not really looked at all. Problems they're having in their marriages and their sexuality, hidden secret addictions, which so many people have. These things are not being addressed at all, and so people have to try and grapple with these by themselves.
Mm.
And the more they do that, they're forced underground and they get worse. And I believe that whole situation is getting steadily worse. And there's not many people who can really help in that area. And of course we're living in a very broken world with increased tensions, which I think exacerbates the need even more so.
So the need has grown, and so it started out with churches. AIFC now has a number of, well, of course we're all biased in this room, of the quality of the courses and what they do and the effect and impact and benefits. Is there a need to perhaps go back to the future in a sense of engaging with the church more directly again, and helping equip pastors and folk directly within the church, of AIFC perhaps going out, not just having people come to do courses?
Well, I think so, but the trouble is a lot of churches have become very self-sufficient, and they don't want help outside their church. They want to be able to solve all their own problems, and of course in many cases they can't. They're not equipped to do it. In fact, often they move in unethical areas to try and cover things up in the church that shouldn't be covered up.
Yeah. That's one of the beauties of AIFC being interdenominational or non-denominational, whichever term you like to use, middle of the road, where we can traverse across different denominations without
That's important.
getting caught up in some of those things.
That's very important that it's AIFC. We've purposely gone out of our way not to identify ourselves with any denomination. We've even tried to avoid using church halls for our gatherings for that reason as well.
Yes.
So people from all different Christian backgrounds can come. So we get people from Roman Catholics, we get people from Seventh-day Adventists, even Mormons have come. People from the whole spectrum of Christianity come and do our courses. And most of them seem to be fairly happy with the doctrine that's being taught.
Yes.
And we try to move in a middle-of-the-road course, so we don't unnecessarily offend people by bringing what's extreme by way of doctrine. And this, I think, has been a real help to people also.
Yes.
In fact, what comes to mind right now is a Mother Superior from a big Catholic convent in Wagga came and did our course. And at the end of the year, when everyone was giving a report on how they've got on through the year, she said, "I must confess, I'm very impressed with your theology." I thought there was somebody coming from a Mother Superior in the Catholic Church. She didn't want to go on though, because she felt the course was too challenging for her. So she dropped out.
At a personal level.
Yeah, on a personal level.
Prepared to change.
And the Mormon guy that came and did our course, very interesting what happened there. He was walking down the street and he slipped over. It was a wet day, and he looked down. He slipped on one of our brochures. So
a divine slip.
And so he looked down there and he picked it up, wiped the mud off it, and this AFC brochure. And he felt God was saying something to him about that. So he took it home and put it on his mantelpiece, and it sat there for, I think, for about 3 months. And he's cleaned the mantelpiece one day and he had another look at it. And he believed that God was definitely speaking to him to say, you go and do that course.
Yes.
So he did. He did the first year of the course. And he's greatly blessed by it, but he said he couldn't go any further than that, because if he did, it would mean a disruption of his family within the Mormon church.
Okay.
Very, very interesting. The stories we hear about people how they came to do our course is very fascinating.
The journey of just getting there, let alone the journey that goes on from there. Yeah, and I think there's over 5,000 now who have done some form of study and journey with aifc.
Yeah.
It's quite a
It's
database.
over 5,000.
Yeah.
And being a government accredited course, it's not just a inferior type of course, it's a fully accredited and ratified course throughout the country and internationally. And people are not just trained in certain aspects of counselling, but they're properly trained to go out and do actual counselling, to be a professional counsellor.
That's right.
Many of our people go into pastoral counselling. What we like to see actually with churches is not the pastors doing their counselling, because first of all, most of them are not equipped to do it. Secondly, they don't have the time to do it. And thirdly, there's what we call dual relationships. Counselling somebody you've got another relationship with is fraught with danger and limitations. So we believe that the ideal thing is to have a counselling clinic within the church. People are trained by organisations like our organisation, and that's more remote from the people themselves. And this is also a good form of outreach for the church, because people can be invited there from any church into that clinic.
There's the frequency and incidence and the severity of mental health issues or mental illness these days for people inside and outside of the church. The statistics are compelling. They seem to be worsening on most of the metrics. Is there a role for the church to really step up and engage more in helping people with mental illness or mental health issues, perhaps more than it is now? Is there an opportunity to really reach out and help people at that level?
There's an enormous opportunity, but the trouble is, and rightly so, many church leaders believe that only qualified people should be doing that kind of work, and the numbers of actually qualified people within the church is usually very limited. So they end up referring those people to somebody outside the church, often a secular counsellor.
Someone who's not a Christian.
That's right, so which has its limitations.
So that,
but anyone who does that kind of counselling dealing with serious mental health issues must be properly qualified. Properly qualified, not just a weekend seminar or someone who's been counselling for 20 years and think they know it all, but someone who can prove with a bit of paper that they are properly qualified with at least 3 years of counselling training.
Yeah.
Including a degree or a graduate diploma, preferably a master's degree in counselling.
In your travels, have you seen churches that do that, and are you seeing it happening across more churches, or is it still an opportunity yet to be realised?
Well, it comes to mind now, a big Baptist church in Melbourne. They sent their whole pastoral team to come and do our course in Melbourne. And at that time it was a 2-year course, because they felt the need for people in pastoral work to be properly equipped and trained. And I think there's need for more of that.
Mm. How do we encourage pastors and leaders in the church to do that? How do we get the message out without crossing the denominational lines that we encounter so often?
Well, we need to keep on producing a quality product first of all, so that when pastors come across that, they're attracted to it, and they'll send their staff along to do our course. That is happening in several churches, and I believe that will increase as our program becomes more widely known and proper standards in counselling are insisted upon.
Mm.
There's no government regulations at this stage.
Anyone can hang a shingle out, can't they?
Anyone can put their brass plate up, but the trouble is, if something goes wrong in their counselling, they're in big trouble if they're not properly qualified. And secondly, the church also will be in big trouble. We've come across several cases like that.
Yeah.
Where people have been sued and the churches have been sued because of poorly qualified people getting into counselling work.
As well as the harm you can do to somebody.
As well as the harm, which is, and I can often put people in a worse situation than what they were before.
Mm. Nelly, it's been a big journey for you over the past 20 to 25 years, the aifc journey, because it's one that you and Bruce have done together.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to mind for you as just some of the key milestones or things just along the way that stay with you? I know there's a lot.
Well, I think, as Bruce said, it's been very fulfilling, and coming across students that have said what they're doing. A lot of students have said they're not in a counselling practice, but they're in a small group in the church, and they're using all the skills that they've been taught. It's very good to hear how their family has been enriched, and how that has multiplied into other families. But having been divorced ourselves, like the consequences of divorce even today, we're still living with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been our growing passion to keep that going.
Yes.
And we're very thankful that you're taking over aifc and continuing to see it grow. So that's very affirmative to us to see that it's being multiplied and that it's not finishing, that it's growing. And we see it as a ministry. And I'm just so thankful to see that it's being successful and that other people are still coming. And now that they can do it on a flexible learning basis, it's going to make it easier for students to continue.
Yes.
So I think that's very important that that's happened in the growth. But I think one of the rewarding things that I've seen with aifc is the way that students have embarked and come with us overseas and overseas trips.
On missions.
Yeah, on missions and going to Africa.
Yeah.
And how they've bought into that, and they're still supporting it today. I think that's been very rewarding. And also the way that when we first started out, the staff took on being tutors to those students over in Africa, and now that they've developed their own course, the Ugandan Institute of Family Counselling. I think that's fantastic that they're continuing on with that.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? The UIFC that is going onwards and upwards in Uganda and growing and getting its own accreditation and navigating its way through all manner of different things over there, but impacting and changing people's lives.
And hearing that tutors are going over regularly each year and monitoring that and encouraging them.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Another point that I think needs to be mentioned is the need of pastors themselves. More and more pastors we hear suffering from burnout and they drop out of the ministry. And we hear divisions in churches so many things happening up in the upper levels of the church and the leadership. And I believe that needs to be addressed too. There needs to be special courses made available for pastors and elders of churches to know how to handle this touchy situation.
Mm. So that specific equipping of leaders in that regard.
Yes, I know for a fact that many church leaders suffer from hidden addictions, marital problems, all kinds of problems that they don't talk about because they really got nowhere to go to get help.
Until it
Because they've
explodes.
got to maintain the status that the church has given to them. Everyone looks up to them as a kind of godlike figure, and they mustn't damage that figure by admitting that they've got some personal problems. Well, I know for a fact that many of them have got personal problems, and of course they think about that going into the ministry will solve them, but it doesn't, only makes them worse.
Do you think it is harder for either it is harder, or the stats tell us that it's harder, or for men to open up about these sorts of things?
Well, it's harder for men to do it, but it's also harder for someone. I mean, the higher up you go, the harder it is to admit you've got a problem. I know that from my own experience.
Yeah.
I was a very prominent dentist, and I had to maintain a certain image. I was a church leader in certain areas too, and admit that you've got some secret problems underneath. I mean, I suffer from multiple addictions, and of course people keep them hidden that they don't supposed to know about it until it becomes exposed. And then of course something's got to be done about it.
Do you have any words of encouragement or otherwise that you would say to people in Christian leadership who may watch this? Words of, I don't want to say advice, but encouragement, or words of wisdom that you'd speak into that? Because you rightly say it's a common thing. It's until something explodes and it all comes out. But what would you say to people in those leadership positions who may be watching?
Well, Alcoholics Anonymous has got a cardinal basic principle it operates on. One is to have a relationship with the higher power, with God. The other is to have a horizontal relationship with fellow human beings, people, other members of AA. Now, I confess over and over again to God, but I never confess to others. The key scripture here is in James 5, where it says, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, and you will be healed. Not might be, but you will be healed. But of course it takes humility to do that. And so people who are high up, they have problems with humility.
And it takes courage too, doesn't it?
Courage, it does take a lot of courage. And but that's the only way you're going to break the power of the thing. And it's not until I actually did that with a couple of elders in the church I was going to way back there in the early 80s that the power of my addictions was broken. I'm not saying I got completely healed, but the power of the thing was broken. Because I believe healing from things like addiction is a lifelong experience. So pastors need to be encouraged to be open like that and be in a group of other men where they can, where there's an environment where they can openly share their struggles and their problems.
Yeah. Vulnerability is not often a word that men really. It's not a word we run to, is it? It's not in our vocabulary a great deal. Being vulnerable as men, is it?
It's not. I'm afraid not. No.
Yeah. How do we? Seriously, how does that change? Because is it just something that runs through us, or is it? Can it be arrested? Can it change? Can we be vulnerable? As a guy, I don't want to talk about my feelings 24/7, but at the same time, if I bottle it up and be an island, we're not made that way. What is it? We're just staying with the theme of men for a moment. What is it that can help break where that can become okay?
Well, that's a big question. That's seeing the adverse results in other people around you ought to be sound the alarm bells, but I'm afraid it doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah.
We're too thick to respond to that. We usually need something more dramatic, a crisis in our life, to shake us out of our complacency. That's what it required for me anyway. And I think most people, healing begins with a crisis. And when a crisis happens, like a divorce, loss of a big job, bankruptcy, numerous crises of that nature, health issues, you can do one or two things. You can submit to the crisis and go to God and get help, or you can run away or try to run away from it by getting into further addictions and further problems. One thing certain is you can't run away from God. Wherever you go, He's still there. And He's got His lasso out ready to get there anytime He wants to, like He did with Jacob. So much depends on a person's relationship with God. God's ways of healing with individuals is very interesting and it varies from person to person, but normally it works through a crisis, and then surrender, then brokenness, and then the healing comes with the help of others.
With the help of others, an important point, isn't it? With the help of others.
With the help of others.
Yeah.
But as a
James 5.
Sorry, but as a preventative measure, and you saying making yourself vulnerable,
Yeah.
Men don't like to do that. It's really, I really think if you have a mentor, or that you make yourself accountable on a fortnightly basis, and meeting another guy for breakfast, or just somebody that you can build a trust relationship with.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good question to ask yourself, isn't it? Is who am I talking to? Who's speaking into my life? And that word that you just said, accountable. Is there anybody that, or who do I have around me that I will allow to just say it as it is into my life?
Not what you want to hear.
Not what I want to hear.
I think we all need a spiritual mentor.
Yeah.
In AA they call it a sponsor, but we need a spiritual mentor, and we need to invite that person to speak to us directly if he sees anything in us that is out of order.
Out of whack.
And that man needs to be an intercessor. I've had a man like that for years. In fact, he said I could go and see him any time of the day or night. And many times I went and saw this man in the middle of the night and shared my heart with him when I was going through difficult times.
Because that's what you're both describing there. I think it happens, and I think men and women do have those sorts of people in their life, but it certainly doesn't seem common, does it?
It's not common.
Do you think that we're so busy as well? I mean...
Oh yeah, busyness is a big one, and but to find one that a man is spiritual, who will be faithful and honest to you,
yes,
and yet he genuinely will care for you and pray for you, who's a spiritual person, there's not too many people like that around. The man I found was a retired missionary, and he was free to help me, and he took my case especially to heart. And he was one of the main secrets of my getting free.
Yeah, that's good. Do you think that's an important part of, maturing from in your faith and ministry and life maturing, if I can use Robert Clinton's term there, discipleship and into leadership, that if you're going to grow as a disciple and into leadership, that if you go into those positions or that realm without what you're describing, is that running a race on one leg?
It's heading for trouble.
Yeah.
But we need such a person. I've actually had 2 spiritual mentors over the years, and in fact I still have one today, right through. I believe we should have one at all times.
Yes.
And not only that, we should be concerned to mentor others, younger people.
That's a great point, Bruce. So that question around who's speaking into my life and whose life am I speaking into?
Yes.
Is it because it
Very
has to run
important.
through, doesn't it?
Very important. These things we're talking about now are far more important than public ministry. They underlie public ministry, effectiveness in public ministry.
I remember Billy Graham saying something, and we all know Billy Graham, but he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, of if I look back on some things I would have done differently, it would have been just to get a group of younger guys around me, just to speak into their lives and disciple them.
That's right. He did say that.
Yeah. So if he's saying that, and he had quite a public ministry,
It sure did.
there must be something to it. Yeah. So how do people out there watching who might be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever age, how do you take that if you're sitting there going, I don't have that, I've never had that, and I'm not doing that to somebody else, I'm not speaking to, where do you start with that and go?
Well, first of all, people got to want it, and that's a big issue. Do people really want that kind of help? Do they want to help people like that, or do they just want to carry along like they have done in the past? One thing certainly is we can't force people into any of these things. It all depends on a person's relationship with God, as I said before.
Is there a point where you've got to some extent, get to the end of yourself and go, okay, I've
Well, I think the crisis does that.
Or I've proven to myself that, because again, as a guy, I can convince myself of anything, and I can be fairly self-sustaining for a while at flying solo, and then you get to a point where you're going, well, this isn't really working out that well for me. Is it something where you just start praying and asking God to bring that person into your life, or seeking somebody out within your faith community? Is that?
Yes, I think so. And there's also your wife.
Yeah.
She should be your best friend, your companion, who you can confide in. But I'm afraid most marriages aren't too good, so that often doesn't work out too well.
On the communication front?
But you could see that through, a lot of people are in small groups in churches.
Yes, yeah.
And, they can ask around, especially as Bruce said earlier, he had a retired missionary, people that have got a little bit more time.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, I could say I could go to a younger person and say, I'd like to be your spiritual mentor. He'd just like to say, I'll blow you, I'm quite happy the way I am, thank you.
Yeah.
People got to want it.
There has to be
and you've got to be desperate to want it.
an awareness.
And once again, you have to make yourself vulnerable.
You do, don't you? That authentic
Transparency.
all those things, yes.
Yeah.
Scripture says, they who diligently seek me shall find me. What we need is diligence in our seeking. Not just slackness and just drifting aimlessly along or drifting along the way we've always done, but diligence in these areas. And the more diligent we are, the more progress we're likely to make.
You've both been on a great journey and have a ministry that's continues to this day and continues to go forward. And is there what are the two things that you would say to younger folk today?
I'd say make sure that you maintain a close relationship with Jesus Christ. Always number one.
Yeah.
And number two, be a good student. Be a reader. Learn all you can. Get all the equipping you can for God's kingdom.
So don't stand still.
Don't stand still. Don't stand read the newspaper every day and say, I'm a good reader.
Is there a saying, readers are leaders? Or leaders are readers? Yeah.
So many Christians today don't read good books. I'm talking about Christian books, not novels. I don't waste my time reading novels. These great big thick books you buy down at the bookstores at the airports. As far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of time reading those great big things, apart from the weight they have and you try to carry them around, the space they take. But a good, solid Christian book that you can get your teeth into.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of them around.
There sure is. There sure is.
Also reading about the biographies of great Christian leaders and Christian missionaries. I find that very inspiring, and I've got quite a collection of them, and I read them frequently.
Nelly?
Well, I very similar to what Bruce says, but I'd be very strong on having a mentor, really searching out for that, because I think it's very hard to keep yourself pure and clean.
On your own.
On your own.
Yeah.
And to make yourself accountable and keep going to church. Because I've noticed a lot of Christians, people that I know, don't go to church. And we need people to go to church to encourage one another, to build one another up.
Yeah, that's good. You've moved to Queensland. You've moved to the warmer weather.
Yeah.
That's a big move. And we certainly miss all our friends in Canberra.
Yeah.
Our friends in aifc, our friends in the local church, our friends in YWAM. Got many of them down there, and we really miss them. But we got the job of finding a new lot of friends up here. We know quite a few people up here already.
Yeah.
And some people up here we've actually worked with in the past. And it's taking a while to get used to the very different weather patterns up here. The warmer weather is certainly suiting our health a lot better than what it was, the cold weather was. So we're pleased for that. We're very thankful for God's goodness in providing this house for us in this beautiful location. If we want me to speak to you up here in the Sunny Coast, we ask them, how do you feel about moving up here? Best thing I've ever done, mate. They all say the same. Never hear any negative reports.
I've never lived in a place where people say that I just love living here. I've never heard that. I don't hear that in Canberra. People saying, I just love living in Canberra. I've never heard that.
Hang in there, all our Canberra viewers. What words of encouragement would you like to leave with the alumni or fellow AIFC students and staff, and those who are coming into AIFC? Some final words for them in this discussion today.
Well, the main thing I would suggest is that they don't forget the foundational values of AIFC, that they adhere to those tenaciously, and the vision, that's where it all began. And also they make it their business to understand the main thrusts of the AFC model of counselling.
That's good.
Not that it should be a straitjacket that people have to conform to, but provides an excellent Christian framework for effective counselling, integrating psychology, theology and spirituality in, I believe, in a very effective manner.
One of the favourite scriptures that I like is that Jesus was moved with compassion.
Yeah.
And what Bruce has just said, yes, if you learn all, be a really good student,
Yep.
and you become a good counsellor, but even if you don't do professional counselling, that you just don't have knowledge on its own, but be moved with compassion for each person that you come across. Because if you haven't got compassion, you're just a hard-hearted person. You've got knowledge,
Yeah.
but people won't share with you if you've just got knowledge.
Yes.
And you'll read it in Scripture, Jesus was moved with compassion. And that's something I've always treasured, to be moved for each person individually.
Because they matter.
Each person is made in God's image.
That's right. That's right. Well, we're grateful for your time today. We covered a few issues there, a little bit of ground.
Yes.
So thanks from me for the discussion today, and from everyone out there who's been able to watch and reconnect with you and just hear what you're up to and just to see you. And I think that's great. So we wish you all the best in the new journey that you've started up here in the place that everybody loves to live in, Budrum. And thank you very much for your time today. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nick.